Audio starting. Okay, we're good. What's up, guys? Cheese here. I'm going to go over something that might seem a little random, but I'm going to explain myself. Who would win in a fight? The Mass Effect universe or the Halo universe? This might get a little edgy for people who know a lot about both, or maybe they have a favorite. I'm going to say I'm maybe a little biased towards Halo, but I'm going to be fair. I'm going to explain everything in great detail. And I also like Mass Effect, so it's not like I don't dislike one. Just been playing the Mass Effect games a lot. If you don't know from one of my previous videos where I was wondering what I should talk about for Halo 5, I mentioned that I've been playing Mass Effect 2 and 3 on the 360. Right now 3, because I beat 2. Moved on. But anyways, I have been playing them. I've liked them. I also love Halo. Halo's probably my favorite gaming series overall, just because of the lore. And I was wondering, who do you think would win? I didn't really find solid answers on the internet or YouTube, so I figured I'll do my own thing. I'll do my own research. And I took a lot of this information from wikis. Any information I use from the video that is from an outside source, I'll put links in the description for you guys. I'm not going to say which fact is from which link, but all the evidence will be there within the huge amount of links that I used. So I'm going to just analyze their navies and armies to keep it simple. And then I'm obviously going to talk about each quite a bit. Up front, I would like to say that the Reapers and the Forerunners will be used, not the Flood. The Flood are way too OP. The Star Roads from the Forerunner trilogy, for Halo at least, they are basically indestructible roads that are, I don't know, light years long, potentially. And they can slice through a star, cause a supernova, and still be intact. So, well, slightly OP. Not going to include that. Also, the fact that the Flood overwhelmed the Forerunners when they had millions of planets and millions of ships. In the manner that they did, I would say that the Flood would absolutely destroy any Mass Effect biological species if they were unleashed with full strength. So, they're too OP. But the Forerunners and the Reapers, they're comparable, right? The Reapers wiped out all life in the galaxy multiple times. The Forerunners did it once, except they did it with greater firepower, and also they did it like seconds. So yeah, kind of a difference. Also, the power of the Halo rings is probably superior to that of a Reaper. No offense, Mass Effect. Anyways, now that we've got all that out of the way, let's get into this. For the navies, I'm going to say that the ships themselves are probably about the same size. The average Halo ship, I'm going to throw out an estimate there because of my knowledge, probably like half a kilometer. Let's say that, 500 meters. For the average frigate or whatever ship you're going to use. Now, obviously, the UNSC Infinity is like over 5 kilometers, but that's an anomaly. It's the only one that's that kind of size. We're not going to talk about that until a little bit later. Mass Effect, the average ship is probably going to be about 700 meters, about. And then Dreadnoughts are going to be like 2 kilometers. Same for Reapers. Sovereign was like 2 kilometers, so we're just going to use that value. And then I'm just going to call it even overall, except for the Covenant. The average Covenant ship is like the size of a Dreadnought in the Mass Effect universe. It's like 2 kilometers long. Also, there are lots and lots of them, as I will mention in a moment. And then there's the Covenant Supercarrier. Yeah, those are very, very large, 28 kilometers approximately. And yeah, they keep Covenant cruisers, which are 2 kilometers, within them. So they're kind of OP, but we'll address all of that in greater detail in a moment. Also, I would like to mention that the Forerunners will be explained just at the end because there are special circumstances surrounding the Forerunners. There's something else. On to the size of the navies in whole. I would say that the Alliance is slightly larger than the UNSC. Slightly. The UNSC probably has a couple thousand ships. The Alliance, maybe a few more. I couldn't pin down exact numbers, but based off of estimates, I would say UNSC is slightly outclassed, but only slightly. And then, of course, we're only saying the Alliance. The Mass Effect universe has a lot of races. They're going to have the advantage in numbers, except, hold on, we haven't talked about the Covenant at all yet. The Covenant is massive. According to the wiki, thousands of Covenant ships are stored within each fleet, and then there are multiple fleets. So 20,000 is an average estimate for the size of the Covenant Armada. I could probably say more if I wanted to, but we're just going to say 20,000 because that automatically outclasses the amount of ships in the Mass Effect universe. To be fair, I mean, if we're saying let's say out of randomness, 4,000 ships for each major race in Mass Effect. So that would be humans, Turians, Asarians, Solarians. That's 16,000. Then we'll say 1,000 Reaper ships, 17,000. They're still outclassed. Even by a small margin, they are still outclassed. And that's probably a mediocre estimate for the Covenant, and I might be overestimating for Mass Effect. Yeah, that's Halo has the edge there. But the arsenals are a different story. Mass Effect, I'd say their main weapon, just like Halo, is the mass accelerator cannon. And it is much stronger in the Mass Effect universe. The velocity on those things is like 4,000 kilometers a second in Mass Effect, just due to how they explain Mass Effect fields and such. In Halo, it's like 30. It's more realistic, but it's also way slower. So it's going to deliver a lot more force in Mass Effect. Although, to be fair, I mean, 30 kilometers a second is still probably fast enough to destroy a Mass Effect ship. I can't exactly say, how the shields of the Mass Effect ship would react, but I think it's fair. I mean, if the UNSC Infinity, even though those mechs are the strongest in the UNSC, if it can blow up a Covenant cruiser in like 1 or 2 shots of the Mac cannon, is probably going to be able to destroy one from the Mass Effect universe. And besides Mac cannons, I mean, they have Thanix cannons and all that. They have tons of weapons in Mass Effect, a few in Halo 2. We're just going to say that Mass Effect has the advantage because they simply have more weapons, and also the weapons are a lot more powerful, like the Thanix cannon. I think that's what was used in Mass Effect 2 for the Normandy, and it blew up a collector ship in 2 shots. A little strong, just a little bit though. But then we get on to the Covenant, and just the fact that Covenant ships generally are 3-to-1 ratio in strength against a UNSC one, that already puts them almost at the level of an Alliance ship. I'd say it's fair to say that, a 700-meter is somewhat heavily armed ship that may or may not have a mass accelerator. Oh, yes, I forgot to mention, only the Dreadnoughts have tons of mass accelerators, and they only have the ones that are the best. Obviously, the Dreadnought's going to have the best because and they have most heavily armed. So I don't know how many Mass Effect cannons a frigate would have in Mass Effect, or if it would have any. Maybe one. I can't say for sure. All right, but let's just say that the Covenant, since they have a 3-to-1 chance against a UNSC ship, one-on-one, they're probably going to be at the level of the Alliance. Also, the Covenant destroyed the Halo armadas. Like, the UNSC got wrecked so hard in space battles. Only Keyes was able to successfully beat them against superior odds, and that was like once or twice. And then the rest of the times, I mean, the only way they would win is if they had like 4 times as many ships. The Covenant stomped us, unfortunately. And, well, I mean, we still won, but that's because of Master Chief. That's different, though. I will also talk about that later. So we've talked about the arsenals. We have not talked about the Covenant armada that much. First of all, I mentioned they have like 20,000 ships. Their plasma weapons, I don't care about the Mac cannons so much as the plasma weapons. The plasma weapons would melt through shields. I don't care what the shields are made from in Mass Effect. I don't care about the scientific explanation. Plasma melts through shields, common game knowledge, at least for those kinds of games. So yeah, and the Covenant super carriers have 7 plasma beam cannon thingies. I don't know the exact name, but and then they also have a couple other weapons too, so that they would absolutely shred Mass Effect pretty easily, considering the size of the Covenant ships and the size of their fleets. The Covenant would probably make up for the UNSC's failures, even though the UNSC has nukes. I mean, it's still probably inferior to Mass Effect. But then you throw in the Covenant, and in my opinion, based on what I've explained, I think the Covenant's going to stomp Mass Effect simply because of their numbers and their plasma weapons, which, to be fair, the Reapers have their laser beam thingy. I'm sorry, I don't know what the weapons the Reapers use are called, but I do know for a fact that plasma weapons destroy shields, and with enough Covenant ships, it could easily destroy a Reaper. I mean, we saw in Mass Effect 1 that enough ships from the Alliance were able to destroy Sovereign, one of the largest Reapers in existence, or, well, it was one of the largest Reapers in existence, past tense. So it's fair to say that the Covenant could probably destroy the Reapers in very large numbers, but they could do it. And then there's also, I mean, if you're going to get into technical arguments saying, oh, the Mass Effect shields are better than the Halo shields, I'm sorry. I'm not going to look into very, very gritty details like that. I'm just going to say that Mass Effect shields, for the sake of argument, Mass Effect shields on ships and people are the same as Halo. I mean, shield is a shield. I don't care what the science is behind it. Maybe Mass Effect's slightly stronger, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to react similarly. Now, onto the forerunners. I'm saving these guys for last, for the navies, because they're a little OP. Let's just start by saying they have millions of planets. I mentioned that earlier, I believe. And that means that they have millions of ships. Because, well, the statistics are on the wiki link. It'll be in the description. It's kind of absurd how many ships they have. And it's also absurd that they had such a vast knowledge of slip space that it would basically be multi-dimensional combat for the Forerunners versus anyone else. And also humanity, pre-Halo humanity, like before the events of the Halo rings, when the Forerunners beat humanity, well, they had to struggle, which means that humanity was almost as strong as the Forerunners. That's saying something. So if we're going to throw in pre-Halo events humanity, that's kind of huge. That's an advantage. And then I don't know exactly what the arsenals are, but you can see from the fact that the Mantle's approach is 371 kilometers long. And that's not even the largest flagship. That was the Didact ship, by the way, for those of you who don't know. He was antagonist in Halo 4. I'm sure you know who he is, but his ship was 371 kilometers long, so we're talking about something the size of a frickin' state in the US, or probably like a small country, at least. And you could tell that it's going to have strong weapons. I think it has a heavy ion cannon. I'm not exactly sure how that would affect other ships, but I'm assuming it would just blow it to bits. It would probably wreck it. And the composer, well, if it works on humans, it's probably going to work on other species too. I know it was tailored for humans, but you know what? The Forerunners are smart. They're going to be able to figure out how to turn Turians and Asari and all that into. That would be an advantage. Also, the ships themselves and the sheer number. And then there are Fortress-class vessels, which are also like 50 to 100 kilometers long, and there are probably hundreds of thousands of them, assuming that they have millions of ships, which they probably do, and then technological advances, the fact that they could beat the precursors. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but the precursors basically created all life in the galaxy. So it's like the opposite of the Reapers. They created all life, they didn't destroy it. Although the Reapers did guide evolution, but let's not get off topic here. The point is, Forerunners would overwhelm the Mass Effect universe. In my mind, there is no argument to say that the Forerunners would not overwhelm the Mass Effect universe. Maybe the Reapers would put up a fight. Maybe the Reapers would be like, you know, how the Covenant is a 3-to-1 ratio against one UNSC ship. Maybe the Reapers would be the same thing. Maybe a Reaper would be stronger than a couple Forerunner vessels, but the Forerunners have so many ships, it's impossible for the Reapers to win, considering that there are like probably no more than 1,000 of them. So that I had a long talk about their navies. Let's get into the armies, which I'm not going to describe as extensively, simply because the navies are going to probably make the biggest difference. Overall numbers, I'm not going to say that I know exactly how many troops are in the UNSC or the Alliance, because I don't. I couldn't pin down any specifics. However, assuming that the average population for humanity is about the same in Mass Effect and Halo, I mean, I know the huge gap in years, like Mass Effect is the 22nd century, Halo is the 26th. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that Halo and Mass Effect have the same amount of humans. And let's say that the Mass Effect species, all of them, have the same amount as humans. They have a pretty close ratio. So, throw in the Covenant on top of humans, you're kind of screwed. There are a lot of Covenant soldiers. I forget exactly where I saw this. I can't cite a source, but I'm pretty sure the Covenant have at least 20 times as many combined forces on the ground as the UNSC would. So this is kind of massive. Also, 65 million humans died in the Human Covenant War, something like that. So, or did I say million? I meant billion. 65 billion. That's a little bit different. So, I would say that Halo honestly would have more humans than Mass Effect. Also, 4 centuries in the future, it's fair, but I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Mass Effect can have as many humans because the Covenant outnumbers them anyways. There's no argument for that. Also, the size of the Covenant fleets kind of gives it away. The Covenant had way more ships than the UNSC, so they're gonna have more foot soldiers. And then the weaponry, I'm not going to try to explain which weapons would be superior because honestly, it's the skill of the soldier. We know that. You can give someone in the Mass Effect universe the weapons that Shepard has, and if they suck, then they're gonna suck, even with the good weapons. So I'm not going to say that those play a huge role. And also, the fact that the weapons react differently to different shields and unshielded enemies and heavily shielded, different types of enemies, the different mods that you can put on Mass Effect weapons, it's going to get really complicated. Let's just say that we're going to call it even on weapons. Halo weapons can damage Mass Effect people. Mass Effect weapons can damage Halo people, except for forerunners because their shields and technology are superior. But we already talked about that. All right, so now I think we can get into the more intense debate, which would be the specialized forces, Spectres and Spartans, the most obvious comparisons. And for this, I'm just going to do Master Chief versus Shepard. This is just going to epitomize how all Spartans would do against the Spectres. I'm not going to choose favorites here, or at least I'm not going to try to. I'm going to tell you why Master Chief would beat Shepard, I think, and why Spartans would beat Spectres in general. So, first of all, they have very, very intense augmentations. And yes, Shepard, I know he has augmentations too, and I know that a lot of the characters in Mass Effect do have some form of augmentation, but for all Spartans, I mean, at least all Spartan 2s, they have a ton of stuff that puts them in a much higher position than a lot of the Spectres, and some of them, I'm just going to read these right off of the wiki because they're absurd. Carbide ceramic ossification, advanced material grafting onto skeletal structures to make bones virtually unbreakable. That's not insane. And then they have muscular enhancement injections, which is a protein complex injecting intramuscularly to increase tissue density and decrease blah, blah, blah. But the point is, it increases their muscles by a ton. They can actually lift like 800 pounds without armor. That's quite a bit. And then there's a catalytic thyroid implant, a platinum pellet containing human growth hormone. It boosts the growth of skeletal and muscle tissue, so instead of having the average human being 5'10", human male, at least, the average Spartan's probably like 6 foot, 6'6", something like that. And then there's all kinds. I forgot to mention the most important one, the reflex enhancements, which increase 300%. Their reflexes go up 300%, which it doesn't sound that insane, but think about if athletes or something in the NHL, in the NBA, in MLB, anything like that, and if they were 3 times faster than they currently are, that would be absurd. There would be no competition. And it's the same thing with Spartans, if they're 3 times faster than the normal human, it's going to be absurd. And then I skipped the retina augmentation. It just basically increases their vision. It makes their vision better. And so now I think since I've read off all those, we can go on to how the Mjolnir armor augments them further. So obviously they got all these augmentations already, and they're probably superior just with those. But then you put the Mjolnir armor on, it further enhances their augmentations. So obviously it has a HUD, which highlights enemies sometimes. It'll give you a lot of advantages in that sense. And then, of course, well, I guess Mass Effect has that too, so that's not a huge factor. But it also increases their reflexes further, and it also allows them to run a little faster. 25 to 30 kilometers per hour at a sprint is probably normal for a Spartan, and for most humans, that is not normal. For the record, they do not run that fast normally. So all Spartans can generally run that fast, at least all Spartan 2s. And then, it's just Mjolnir gives them all these advantages. I should also mention that if you don't have the proper augmentations, if you put on a set of Mjolnir armor, you will literally break your bones. It's that strong. So you have to be a Spartan 2 to wear Spartan 2 Mjolnir armor. Or I guess Spartan 3s and 4s, they have their sets of armor too, but specifically for the Spartan 2s. And then the augmentations obviously play a key role too. I mean, that's how they don't break their bones, and the reflexes allow them to not, spin their arm in a circle 5 times in a second and just dislocate their arm. It's a huge difference between someone with Mjolnir armor in the Halo universe and someone with just whatever armor they have in the Mass Effect universe. And then we've just talked about augmentations. We haven't even talked about the characters themselves. So Shepard, he's got quite a few accomplishments. I'm not going to list them all, obviously, because there's a lot, but he's done a lot. Master Chief's also done a lot. So it's kind of hard to say one's done better than the other. They've both saved their galaxies, pretty much entire extinctions. And the big difference here is how they go about it. Shepard, he's always got a squad with him, right? You've always got a 3-man squad, including Shepard, or in some cases, like, I'm not going to spoil anything, don't worry, just at the end of Mass Effect 2, you somehow involve all of your characters in that mission, in that final mission. So maybe he'll have even more than 3 characters at a time fighting against whatever they're fighting. And so in Halo, yes, Master Chief pretty much does everything in the games himself. I mean, yes, he has Blue Team, but that's only, outside of the events of the Halo games and maybe Halo 5. Obviously, Blue Team's in Halo 5. So going through all of those things that he did during the Halo games, that was basically single-handedly done. And then, yes, he has Cortana. Some people are going to say, hey, Cortana helps him out a lot. Well, let's put it this way. Pretty much controls all of his own actions, his own reflexes, his own mental stimulations. Cortana just gives him additional information in combat, right? And so EDI in Mass Effect, she does the same thing, in effect, because she's also an AI. She feeds Shepard information about the current mission. It's basically the same kind of update as Cortana would give. Cortana is just a little faster with a little bit more information, but in effect, I'm just going to cancel them out, because saying Cortana is there and that it, cancels out what Master Chief does, that's kind of absurd. Chief does it single-handedly, let's put it that way. End of debate, at least for this case. And then finally, one other thing that sets Chief apart from Shepard, the odds that they face in combat scenarios, solely combat scenarios, not for the entire galaxy, because obviously the Reapers are daunting and the Covenant is daunting. And, well, in Halo 4, the Didact is also daunting, but that's a different story. I'm not going to go over that. One Forerunner. We already talked about how the Forerunners are OP. I'm almost certain that you know how the Forerunners are going to do. I'm against, pretty much anyone, actually, even the Reapers, just with their ships and all. But I'm getting a little bit off topic here. The point is, Master Chief goes into things by himself, and in addition to going in by himself, he basically fights entire Covenant armies. Like, I'm going to give an example that doesn't really spoil too much. In Halo 2, he goes into High Charity. This isn't really a spoiler. I don't know why I said that earlier. He goes into High Charity, which is basically the mobile capital ship of the Covenant, and it's like, again, probably comparable to the size of the Mantle's approach. It's about 300 kilometers diameter, I think. It's a huge city. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it if you know anything about Halo. And if you do know anything about Halo, you probably know about it. He basically fought everyone that he could inside by himself. There really wasn't any assistance besides, obviously, Cortana feeding him info, but I talked about that. I'm not going to count Cortana as any additional help. So yeah, he's done it all by himself, and not just in High Charity. I mean, obviously, when you're playing the Halo games, you're not playing with someone else, at least someone lore-wise. You could have multiplayer campaign and stuff, but that's not, obviously there aren't 3 Master Chiefs running around. It's 1, and so he's doing it all by himself. Shepard is not. That doesn't mean that Shepard's bad. It just means that, if he were by himself, Shepard probably couldn't do it, especially for Mass Effect 2, like the last mission. Again, I won't spoil anything. It's not really a spoiler. It's just Shepard needs help from a lot of his squad mates in the final mission. It's very obvious once you progress with the game that it's not a one-man wrecking crew, and it never was in Mass Effect for any game, really. And I think that pretty much covers everything between Master Chief and Shepard. I hope that you agree that Master Chief would beat Shepard because of his augmentations, because of his armor, because of his approach to different situations, and how much they fight. And really, I think that's it for the entire video. I've already determined that, at least for navies, the Covenant would probably compare to Mass Effect, and it would maybe even beat them by itself, but then you throw in the Forerunners, and it's unfair. I mean, I know I said it's fair to include the Forerunners and the Reapers, and it kind of is. The Reapers, in all honesty, the Reapers could destroy the Covenant with the help of the other Mass Effect species. They could do it. It's just that with the Forerunners, they would definitely lose. Definitely. Although, I mean, not to say that the Covenant wouldn't beat them. I personally think that they would, just because of the plasma weaponry. That's a huge advantage, but I guess it's all still an opinion. Even though I'm using evidence to prove it, it's still an opinion. So you guys are going to say different things, obviously. Not everyone is going to say the same. They're not all going to say, well, you know, Master Chief would always beat Shepard. There's going to be someone out there I know that says Shepard would beat Master Chief for reason 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. That's fine. This is just my opinion on which universe would win, and I tried to keep it out of my personal opinion. I didn't want to say Halo would win because I like Halo. That's not at all what this is about. I'm saying Halo would win because it simply has a lot more advantages than Mass Effect. Even though Mass Effect does have some advantages, there are a lot of things Halo has that Mass Effect just can't compete against. I'd say that concludes this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope if you were watching the gameplay at all, if you weren't, whatever, if you're just plugging in headphones and listening, that's fine. But if you watched the gameplay in the background, I hope that was entertaining for you. And again, have an awesome day.
Railgun in 10 seconds. Railgun on the field.
Distraction. Leader nearing victory. Reversal. Killing spree. Double kill.
Railgun in 10 seconds. Railgun on the field.